Warm welcome. The latest that we're getting in, day after the deadly terror strike in Paris, fresh shooting and an explosion has been reported. The fresh shooting has been reported in southern part of Paris, the southwest suburban Paris, namely Montrouge. A French police officer, who's a woman, has been wounded in the attack. Now, this comes a day after the deadly terror strike at the Charlie Hebdo office that left 12 people dead. A man wearing a bulletproof vest fired on police officers with an automatic rifle today just outside of the main city of Paris, seriously injuring one policewoman. A suspect has since been detained. Reports say gunmen opened automatic fire in Montrouge before escaping in a metro. One person has in fact escaped. His partner has been detained. A suspect has reportedly been arrested. Is the same that we're talking about. Meanwhile, Interior Minister Bernard Cazeneuve is rushing to the scene of the incident near Port de Châtellon, south of France, which happened just a day after two gunmen killed 12 people in an apparent Islamist strike. Let's dip in right now immediately to France 24.
Right, let's go now live to the Élysée Presidential Palace, where our Mark Perman is standing by. Mark, we just heard the Prime Minister there earlier this morning. He spoke again more recently there at the Élysée Palace, where you are. Tell us about that.
Yes, there was a interministerial meeting this morning, just like there was yesterday, with the top officials in charge of security here in France, and the Prime Minister made just brief remarks, no new announcements. He again warned the media to be very careful with the information they are transmitting, and so there is still a manhunt going on. There's also this worry about the incident south of Paris that you were mentioning, which prompted the early departure of the Interior Minister, Bernard Cazeneuve, who only spent a few minutes here at the Élysée Palace. Right now, there is a very symbolic meeting taking place between the President, François Hollande, and his predecessor, Nicolas Sarkozy, who arrived at 9:30. And supposed to leave any minute now. Half an hour meeting, that's very unusual. It also shows that it's a very unusual day in France, a day of mourning, but also a day of national unity. And given the adversity between the two men, it's a very strong symbol that was sent this morning. If you probably saw those images of Nicolas Sarkozy arriving at the Élysée, and he's going to leave now any minute.
Mark, in addition to this shooting in the southern Paris suburb of Montrouge, another explosion we heard about near Lyon. We're just getting reports now of another explosion at a kebab shop near a mosque in eastern France. Again, officials saying no casualties there, but I guess this does again justify this state of highest level of alert at which we are now here in France. Talk us through, if you will, this Vigipirate plan and what's been put in place to make sure the country stays safe.
Well, obviously, this is the highest level of alert. It means there are more troops on the ground, more troops on patrol, more security checks at very sensitive places like airports, train stations, in front of schools. So there's really a maximum amount of security. But obviously, there are always some weaknesses, and especially if there are random shootouts taking place, there's very little the police can do. So yes, you hear reports right and left, and this is why the Prime Minister urged the media to be careful, because now any criminal activity is being linked one way or the other with what happened yesterday, and what the government wants to avoid is a general panic in the French population. Obviously, until the two suspects from yesterday's massacre are apprehended, there will be worries, and this is certainly something that the French government is working around the clock to stop and make sure they can be neutralized or ideally arrested.
All right, thank you for that, Mark Perman, reporting there from the Élysée Presidential Palace, where that second emergency meeting was held earlier today. Well, the attack on Charlie Hebdo is the worst terror attack on French soil in 50 years. Witnesses have described terrifying scenes within the offices of the magazine at Wednesday just before lunchtime. Also, the terrible carnage that was there afterwards. The men, in fact, first went to the wrong address just down the street. Once they got to Charlie Hebdo,
with what we can confirm right now, there has been a fresh incident of firing in the southwest suburban part of Paris. The third incident that has come in has been an explosion that took place in Lyon, that took place in a restaurant right next to a mosque. And the France 24 news anchor was just mentioning the fact that there could have in fact been a possible fourth explosion in north of France. We're going to try and get in details. Those are unconfirmed reports. We're going to try and get in details on the same as well. So it seems right now on the face of it that there have been a fourth incident as well. We're trying to get confirmation on the same. We just heard France 24, the news channel that we were dipping into, the anchor asked the reporter on a fourth blast that has been reported at a kebab shop which has taken place in the north of France. Clearly, at this point of time, the country of France is on edge with the highest security levels in place. So what's transpired since the morning, I want to take our viewers through that. 8:40 Paris time, fresh shooting that occurred at Montrouge, which is the southwestern suburban part of Paris. It's actually right outside the main city limits of Paris. All right, this is courtesy France 24 that we're dipping in. These are visuals of the strike which took place, in fact, today morning. We're going to try and get in more information on that front. But to take our viewers through what has transpired since the morning at 8:40 Paris time, which is about 15 minutes from now, India time, an incident of fresh firing was reported, unprovoked fresh firing, which was reported at the southwest suburban part of Paris. All right, let's listen in. We are cutting in across to various news channels covering the story. Let's dip into Al Jazeera and we are back with the latest.
People here reject as being absolutely unacceptable. Sure, there are always going to be differences of opinion, differences of belief in a society, but there's a firm conviction here that those differences have to be worked their way out through dialogue, not through violence. And I think as well, very much President Hollande leading from the front in this idea of unity. I think it is significant that he invited to the meeting at the Elysee Palace on Thursday morning the former president, Nicolas Sarkozy, who is once again leader of the opposition UMP party, a political rival of President Hollande's. The two men stood head-to-head in the presidential elections when President Hollande was elected, but nevertheless very much showing that now is a time for all political forces, all forces in the country to unite to try to defeat this threat.
Jackie, thank you very much indeed. That's Jackie Rowland reporting there live from Paris. Now, the sadness and shock in France has been echoed around the world. Countries have been quick to condemn the attacks in Paris.
All right, that's the latest that we're getting in. Want to take our viewers through what has transpired since morning. France clearly on edge with security at the highest level there. The Prime Minister just about an hour ago gave out a statement. We're going to try and play that back for our viewers. Manuel Valls came and spoke, asked for the press to show, to constrain in terms of the kind of information that is going out. He also appealed to the general community to not target one particular community as such, which has come at the back of what transpired yesterday on that attack at Charlie Hebdo office, which left 12 dead. I want to immediately cut across to our deputy editor, Smita Sharma. She's with me. You know, Smita, not to sound alarmist at this point of time, but if we just recall the sequence of events from the morning, at about 1 hour ago India time, which is about 8:40 a.m. Paris time, incident of fresh firing take place. Just about an hour after, just about like half an hour after that, an incident of an explosion in city of Lyon in France, and now there are unconfirmed reports, in fact, coming in of a fourth explosion. We can't confirm it yet. We're picking it up from various wires, but an other incident of an explosion that has taken place at a kebab shop at North France. Can you just take us through with what you're getting in, what you're picking up, and we're trying to get in more reactions?
Well, clearly, the very, very challenging times here, pre for France. And, if you look at the sequence of events today, all of these attacks, because France, remember, they are almost 4.5 hours behind the Indian Standard Time. They're happening early morning hours. The Lyon mosque blast is reported to have had
Smita, I'm afraid I'm coming in. I'm really sorry. I'm afraid I'm coming in. We are going on cutting across to France 24 and other international news agencies which are picking up the latest from ground zero. So let's cut across to France 24. There's a spot report being filed by a reporter there, and we're coming right back to
covering this story in regards to the shooting at Charlie Hebdo since it broke yesterday around lunchtime French time. One thing that is interesting is that so far now, almost 24 hours after, there has still been no direct claim of responsibility on who might be behind this.
Well, at the moment, the focus is on trying to find the suspects. It's not impossible that they've left the country, so the focus, one of the searches, as you know, was on the Belgian border. So at the moment, police are really trying to speak to anyone close to those gunmen to try and see where they might have gone, where they might have some kind of support or a safe house or relatives or something along those lines. As you say, no link at this stage to any particular group or network. All we can say at this stage is that our jihadists on social media have praised this attack on Charlie Hebdo, calling it the blessed operation against Charlie, noting, of course, that this magazine had published those cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad, which were deemed to be blasphemous by many Muslims. So that, of course, is is sort of in the social media sphere, but no claims or no suggestions of a link to a particular extremist network here.
Armin, you mentioned there those comments made by the shooters as they came into the office. One of the comments also reportedly, one of the things that they shouted was, "The Prophet is avenged." Just explain to us and to our viewers, if you will, why such fury over depicting the Prophet Muhammad?
Well, the magazine actually reprinted these cartoons. Firstly, in 2006, it was the year after the Jyllands-Posten, the Danish newspaper, first published them, and then it basically was cleared by a French court. The French court decided that Charlie Hebdo was working within the limits of freedom of expression, that it hadn't exceeded that principle, if you like. So it then reprinted those pictures. Obviously, they were seen to be offensive because, first of all, you're not really supposed to show the Prophet, and secondly, not to poke fun or give him silly lines to say in speech bubbles and things like that. It's not really, Prophet is not something that you would normally expect to see in a cartoon, but that's the whole point of Charlie Hebdo. It was always making fun at religious figures. It once showed an Orthodox Jew in an embrace with a Nazi soldier. So obviously that was deemed very offensive too, as was the picture of Pope Benedict XVI embracing a Vatican guard in relation to those stories about homosexuality and abuse in the Catholic Church. So that's really been sort of an important part of its mission, and certainly the surviving members of the staff say that they're going to try to continue that, that other media outlets will be essentially pooling together in order to publish another issue of Charlie Hebdo, which we think may happen this week.
Let's come back to the manhunt that's still underway for these at least two gunmen who reportedly attacked the offices of Charlie Hebdo. What more do we know? What information do we have now about these suspects?
One of them was convicted in 2008 of running a smuggling ring of people, so a human smuggling ring, essentially, going to funnel. Smuggling that's not quite the right way of putting it, but a network sending jihadists to Iraq, and that was back in 2008. So this one of those two suspects, he was very much fired up by, or so he said at the time, by the prisoner abusers at the Abu Ghraib prison. So he was definitely very much sort of keyed into the whole idea of Western oppression of Muslims, and particularly American practices at places like Abu Ghraib and Guantanamo Bay. So that was the conviction in 2008. So clearly that was a pretty serious charge. We're not dealing with sort of a record of petty crime only, which is typically the background of lone wolves like the Ottawa shooter. Here we're not dealing with a lone wolf. We're clearly dealing with a paramilitary assault with people who deliberately made sure that the security arrangements that were in place for Charlie Hebdo, which after all had been threatened repeatedly over its cartoons, they made sure that whatever security arrangements were in place would be, no match for a real paramilitary assault for people who had training in using these weapons that we can see right there in our pictures. So, of course, a lot of questions are going to be asked about where they got them, where they were trained. Was it here? Was it in Iraq or somewhere else? We don't have the answers to any of those questions at this stage. But obviously, I think the sort of general fears must be mounting, given that the latest attack in Montrouge in southern Paris was made using MP5 rifles, which is also, the kind of weapon that you would expect professionals to have, and not some kind of mentally unstable person of the kind that was carrying out those attacks in French markets just before Christmas that you'll remember.
Thank you for that, Armin. Well, as you can imagine, there has been sympathy, empathy pouring in from around the world to the attacks in the heart of Paris yesterday that left 12 people dead. Pope Francis, Britain's Queen, President Obama and Ban Ki-moon are among the many world leaders to send messages of support and condolences. Shirley Sitbon takes us through some of the international reaction.
World leaders reacted quickly to events in Paris.
All right, that is the big story that we are tracking at this point of time. France clearly on edge as we speak. The security levels alert to the highest level as well, to the highest notch after the attacks which were witnessed yesterday. Now, what we can take, our viewers, we quickly want to encapsulate with what has transpired in the last couple of hours. The first attack which took place, of course, was last evening at the Charlie Hebdo office, which killed 12 people. Now, on the southwest suburban part of Paris, just outside the main city of Paris, today morning, there have been fresh unprovoked firing. One person, the perpetrator in that, has in fact got away. One has been apprehended, 2 police persons injured and 1 policewoman critically injured out of the 2. Then the third explosion, now that's also a confirmation that has come in, took place at a kebab restaurant in Lyon, right next to a mosque. No casualty reported in that front. So 3 incidents that have taken place. The Charlie Hebdo office is a confirmed terror strike. The second one, with what most experts are pointing out at this juncture, is that it is a terror strike because the kind of weaponry those 2 which fired at the police persons had on them goes on to suggest, which were MP5 rifles, go on to suggest that any random person would not be carrying a weapon like that. And the third attack right now is an explosion that has taken place at Lyon in a restaurant in France.
Gunmen forced entry during the magazine's news meeting when they began shooting. Josh Fardy takes a look back now at the victims.
Sharb, Volansky, Tignou, and Cabou. 4 of France's most famous satirical cartoonists killed in one attack. Stéphane Charbonnier, who worked under the name Sharb, had been the chief editor of Charlie Hebdo since 2009 and the artist behind many of its cartoons. One of his most recent. No attacks yet in France, it says, but there's still until the end of January to send our New Year's greetings. Sharb had been the target of previous threats, but always defended his right to free speech. In November 2011, the magazine ran a Sharia Hebdo edition which showed a caricature of the Prophet Muhammad on the front page. Their offices were firebombed shortly afterwards. 80-year-old Volansky was also a legendary cartoonist who began his career in 1961. He was well aware of the risks the journalists faced, but said they must face them.
We feel like we're invulnerable. For years and years, even decades. We provoke, and then one day the provocation turns back against us. I'm not saying that we shouldn't do it. It's our job. So we'll just get working on the next issue.
Tignou, or Bernard Varlac, was also one of the magazine's most famous names. An irreverential cartoonist who died at the age of 57. And Cabou, known across France for his satirical cartoons that were also published in newspapers Le Monde and Le Figaro, as well as Le Canard Enchaîné, another of the country's biggest satirical publications. He'd worked at Charlie Hebdo for 46 years.
I'm joined now on the line by Tim Wolf from Frankfurt. Tim Wolf is the senior editor at the German satirical magazine Titanic. Thank you.
All right, once again, want to take our viewers with the very latest that is coming in at this point of time. The France security levels at its highest. France on edge, and understandably so. With what transpired yesterday, there have been 2 fresh incidents that are confirmed incidents that have taken place. We're going to put out the map right there for you, right on top. Charlie Hebdo office, which was attacked yesterday, left 12 people killed. You move on southwest from there, a little outside the city of Paris. That is where today at 8:40 a.m. the second attack has taken place, and it's a confirmed unprovoked attack that has left 2 police persons injured, one of them critically so. The third one is not in Paris, it is in the city of Lyon, the tourist city of Lyon. That is where the third incident has taken place. It is an explosion. Right now, no confirmation coming in whether it is a terror strike, but the second one, experts suggest, is in fact a terror attack which ties in, or it doesn't. We don't have an official confirmation of that on what transpired yesterday. We will keep getting our viewers the very latest reactions coming in, getting you the ringside developments on what's taking place in France on edge.